They say the dead cannot speak. They are wrong. There are moments in life when we give everything. Not for ourselves, not for glory, not for recognition, but simply out of care for those who rely on us. In the first part of this story, I climbed a cliff to steady my emotions, not to escape them, but to refine them. From the top of the mountain, with the earth far below and the wind clear around me, I held my students in my mind. I asked for nothing for myself, only guidance, so that I could teach them well. What I did not know was that such pure offering opens something. A doorway, a channel, a path of light that cannot be forced, but only given to. Later, in the second part of this story, the impossible arrived. At night, beside my sleeping wife, the voice began to speak. Not her voice and not her breath, a voice with weight, with presence, with light in it. The voice of the master, Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov, speaking through her, as if the boundary between life and death no longer existed. It was not terrifying, it was overwhelming in another way, like witnessing a door open between worlds. And the master said, "Because you did not ask for yourself, because your heart was turned toward your students, you opened a path through which I can return. This is not a story about belief. This is not a superstition. This is not imagination. This is what happens when love gives itself completely, without reaching, without asking, without wanting. When the heart offers itself purely, the sky opens. Sometimes the voice returns. Sometimes the master speaks again." Take a breath. Let us begin.
Chapter 5. Act 13. The Silent Ascent. The sun was only just beginning to crest the jagged peaks of Ardèche, casting long golden tendrils through the dissipating morning mist. The village of Dunière lay undisturbed in the valley below, its quiet stillness mirroring the breath of the land itself. Above it all, I stirred. A lone figure preparing for an ascent not dictated by necessity, but by an unspoken call, a moment of communion between body, mind, and nature. As I sat in the stillness of the early morning, my thoughts turned to Kinniku. Her progress over the past months had been extraordinary. Watching her grow, her movements gaining grace and power, her spirit shining with quiet determination, had been like witnessing a sunrise. There was a beauty in her evolution, an innocence wrapped in strength, radiating a warmth that filled me with a sense of pride and inspiration. Yet I was cautious, mindful of the subtle dangers that admiration could bring. It had to remain pure, untainted by anything darker. What I saw in Kinniku was light itself, a beacon of radiant energy and tenderness. She was a source of vitality, a reminder of the power of dedication and authenticity. This light could inspire, propel me forward, but only if I nurtured it with the same reverence I brought to the practices that shaped my life. It was with these thoughts that I turned toward the cliff. The ascent would be an embodiment of this clarity, a deliberate act to channel the light I felt into something tangible, to transform inspiration into action.
We are warriors, warriors of love, fighting with the light from the stars above.
This climb would not merely be a trial of body and will, but a meditation, a dedication to the radiance that urged me to rise.
No fear, no chains, we rise, we stand, for love, for truth, for this holy land.
I stepped forward without hesitation, my decision not premeditated, but arising from an inner necessity.
See the deer run free through light,
The cliff loomed before me, sharp and imposing, its rugged face etched with crags and crevices that seemed to whisper secrets of the Earth's timeless resilience.
We are warriors, warriors of love, fighting with the light from the stars above. No fear, no chains, we rise, we stand, for love, for truth, for this holy land.
The ascent began not with a rush of thought, but with a surrender to the body's wisdom. My hands moved instinctively, finding holds as if guided by an ancient memory. My feet pressed against the stone, their placement precise, deliberate. Each movement was an expression of freedom, a seamless flow, unencumbered by doubt or hesitation. The rhythm of the climb became a dance, a silent choreography between man and mountain. As I ascended, my awareness dissolved into the present moment. The rock's cool texture beneath my fingertips, the whisper of the wind against my skin, the steady cadence of my breath, all merged into a single, harmonious experience. The discipline I had cultivated in freediving rose to meet me, the control of breath that had carried me into the depths now guiding me skyward. Inhale, anchor, exhale, release. The mountain became my mirror, reflecting a state of pure being. At last, I reached the summit. The horizon unfurled before me in waves of green forest, an endless expanse vibrating with life. Standing there, I let the fullness of the moment wash over me, the burning in my muscles mingling with the exhilaration of triumph. Yet this was no triumph over the mountain. It was a victory of alignment, of harmony between my inner and outer worlds. I dropped into a stillness that mirrored the view. Slowly, I began to flow through a sequence of Tai Chi movements, each gesture as deliberate as the climb. My arms carved through the air like streams weaving through stone, my breath setting the pace. With each motion, I felt my energy shift, my awareness deepening. The mountain seemed to breathe with me, its vastness lending a quiet strength to my movements. At the apex of this meditative state, the memory of my lost master surfaced. It struck not as a sharp pain, but as a gentle wave, rippling through the calm I had cultivated. I had never prayed for him, for death to me was a passage rather than an end. Yet here, at this pinnacle, I felt compelled to speak, not in grief, but in gratitude and seeking.
Dear Master, Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov,
I whispered, the wind carrying my words into the vast sky. You taught me not just how to move, but how to be. Your wisdom shaped my path, and now that you have crossed into another realm, I rejoice for you.
Though my master's gone, his presence stays with me.
Yet, how will I guide my students without your counsel? How will I answer their questions without your guiding hand?
Guiding every breath in secret harmony.
The wind responded with a soft murmur, an echo of something I already knew. In the stillness, the answer emerged not as a revelation, but as a truth long held within. I will manage on my own, I said softly. Your teachings live within me, and in the love I give my students, your wisdom endures.
It is a secret between my soul and his, a flame unseen, but always here.
I remained there for a while longer, the vast solitude enveloping me like a silent embrace. The practice of breath and movement gave way to simple presence, each inhalation, a thread connecting me to the mountain, to the memory of my master, to the life teeming below. When I finally descended, it was by an easier path, the steep cliffs left behind like a chapter closed. This climb, this communion, was mine alone. It would remain unspoken, not out of secrecy, but reverence. Some moments belong to the heights, to the unyielding cliffs and the vast silence of the skies. They are understood only by those who dare to ascend not to conquer, but to connect. And so the summer began, with the silent ascent marking its dawn, a prelude to the lessons, challenges, and discoveries yet to come.
Though my master's gone, his presence stays with me, guiding every breath in secret harmony. His spirit is always provided.
Chapter 2. The Voices of Silence. The summer in Ardèche had unfolded like a dream of strength, discipline, water, and stone. My students and I had immersed ourselves in the intensity of the currents, climbed steep cliffs, explored the depths of freediving, and fought on the burning sands of rivers. Techniques became sharper, bodies stronger, and in every movement I felt the presence of my late master. I had never stopped teaching, even under the relentless sun, and my lessons were always given freely because teaching was never a profession for me, but a vocation, a deep calling of the soul. But soon, summer vacation came to an end. September signaled the return to routine to the martial arts school in Charvieux, 200 kilometers from my home. There, near Lyon, my students awaited me, as did a couple of dear friends, Corinne and Jackie, who welcomed me into their home so I could sleep close to my school. Their hospitality was warm, but this time something new and unsettling added to the familiarity. Corinne's obsession with the Ouija board. That evening, in the cozy living room of their house, Corinne, Jackie, and even my wife, Fabienne, were sitting around a table, eyes fixed on a glass in the center, surrounded by the letters of the alphabet. Their faces were focused, expectant, as the glass moved faintly, as if pulled by an invisible string. They spent hours trying to capture responses, signs, words, while I observed from the couch, a yoga book in hand, finding them desperately ridiculous. And then, to break the monotony, to mock their enthusiasm a little, I stood up with a smirk. All right, let me show you how to summon spirits. It was just a joke, a casual demonstration. I closed my eyes and, in a solemn voice, invoked a channel of light, a space of purity meant to repel any shadow and attract only clarity. It was just theatre, nothing more. But the moment I placed my finger on the glass, everything changed. The glass began to move with a speed that stunned me. Letters formed, words, sentences. And there, before my astonished eyes, It seemed as though the yoga master I had invoked during my ascent in Ardèche was responding to me. I had completely forgotten that moment, lost in the recesses of my mind, but now, faced with these words taking shape under my fingers, a wave of fascination swept over me. The following week, back at Corinne and Jackie's, I returned to the table with new determination. This time, I had prepared precise questions, technical ones, trying to understand whether this phenomenon was real or just an illusion. The answers I received were perfect, disturbingly accurate. At the end of the session, I asked the master, almost jokingly, if I should stop to avoid tiring him. The response sent an unexpected chill through me. Now I am a young man. I didn't understand it at the time, but the idea that old age no longer held sway over him, that death had freed him from his worn-out body, suddenly struck me with painful clarity. But there was a discomfort, an underlying tension. Corinne and Jackie were there, witnesses to these exchanges, and I felt restrained, unable to ask the most intimate, deepest questions. I decided then to try alone, with Fabienne, one night at home. Just the two of us, with the table, the glass, and a simple yes and no to guide the responses. This time, the glass moved slowly, hesitantly. I asked, "Master, are you ready to answer my questions?" The glass indicated yes. "May I set up the alphabet so you can speak to me?" A firm no. Puzzled, I tried one last question, seeking to understand. "Master, may I ask questions so you can answer?" The glass hovered over yes, but the idea of setting up the alphabet was rejected again. A failure, I thought. This was ridiculous, absurd. We went to bed, disappointed, confused. But that night, in the silent darkness, something strange happened. Fabienne, asleep beside me, suddenly began to experience soft vibrations, an almost imperceptible trembling. I tried to wake her, without success. Her breathing changed, her body completely relaxed, and suddenly, she began to speak in a deep voice, a voice I knew well, my master's. "Stop that. It's not funny at all," I said, irritated. But the voice continued, deep and steady, speaking to me with the same tone, the same inflections as in my memories. A shiver ran down my spine. "All right. Let's say you are my yoga master. You died 2.5 years ago, and now you've come to speak to me through my sleeping wife. Why?" The answer was direct, no frills.
"Because you are lost."
It wasn't a condemnation, just a simple observation. And within me, I felt the truth of those words. "Okay, it's true. I am lost, but I'm not the only one. Why me?" I pressed. The voice resonated again, with disarming sincerity.
"Because you are honest."
A light laugh accompanied this answer, almost affectionate.
You would be surprised how many people are truly honest. But there is something else.
"What?" I asked, my throat tight.
When you were alone at the top of that mountain in Ardèche, in your victory, you didn't ask for anything for yourself. You only thought of your students, of helping them, of guiding them. By that act of total giving, you opened a channel of light that allows me to come and speak to you. I will teach you everything you need to know to answer your students' questions.
And then the truth overwhelmed me. A torrent of emotions swept over me, and I sobbed. Filled with intense joy, with infinite respect for what was happening. This was no longer just a game, but a new reality, a sacred bond that had opened between my master and me beyond death. Thus began a new year, not only as a teacher, but once again as a student, ready to learn, to grow under the guidance of this master who had come from the shadows to lead me.